Welcome everybody. I owe you a big apology. Sorry for not putting this part of the Christmas special basement rebuild out sooner. A couple of reasons. Obviously, most of the stuff I filmed, as I explained before, was roughly 1 month earlier than when it came out. Obviously, I filmed stuff and then waited for Christmas to start releasing it. But we then got to the point where I did actually stop for the Christmas break. I had other things to do, and then when I came back from Christmas, I need to start working on customers' work, so my own projects kind of get pushed to the side a little bit. So I didn't actually film a lot of stuff. I haven't made much further progress than the stuff you've seen already, but also because I was waiting on some other bits and pieces. So and I didn't want to just put out a video that wasn't really worth it. I wanted to make sure that you actually had something that you could get your teeth into and actually enjoy. So we're now pretty much up to date. What I will do in these videos moving forward, and I'm sorry if this confuses some people, but I am going to include some clips that I did film at the end of last year. So apologies if some stuff seems to be in the wrong order, but I've put it in an order that seems to make sense, or at least will make it easier for you to follow the progress of the build, even though it might not have happened in that particular order. Got it? Cool. Okay, so let's start with the first thing, postal deliveries. A very nice chap called Ricardo has sent to me a package all the way from Los Angeles. And I really do hope that the fires didn't get you, and if they did, you know, I hope you get yourself back on your feet very quickly. But this one has come all the way over from LA. So we'll get this thing open and see what he sent to me. I mean, I already know what it is, but we'll pretend we don't for the camera. It's packed really well. See what it is yet? That's right, it's a fender knob, the missing knob for my basement. If you look back at episode 1, you will see that the amp was indeed missing one knob, the one that was on the master volume, and that someone had put a different style knob on there. Very, very kindly, Ricardo has sent to me a knob. Now, comparing it to the ones that are on the amp, it is actually slightly different, but it's closer than the reissue ones are. It's got the correct fitment, no grub screw. So I think that will be perfect for the master volume. So thank you very much, Ricardo. However, I realised something. And some of you will laugh at me, some of you won't, but I completely forgot that the original knobs on the amp were, in fact, let me get one. Here they are. You see, they are split end, split shaft with the grooves, the splines, right? Okay. And if you remember, I've installed into the chassis the solid brass CTS dimple backs J-taper. And as you can see, here's one of the knobs. It doesn't go. My mistake. Silly me. So I've had to order a set of spline shaft CTS pots for this thing. Thankfully, I still managed to find them in J-taper, so that's all good. But yeah, going back to the knob, thank you, Ricardo. That's really kind of you. I do appreciate that. When the amp's finally done, it's just going to set it off really nicely indeed. Okay, we'll put all that to one side. The second thing that's finally arrived are my spacers. So I got the call from my machinist, my fabricator, yesterday morning to say he's got these done. He's made them up. Remember, that was the mock-up that I did, that full-size mock-up. It's exactly the same. Exactly the same. Very, very happy with that. So we've got 2 of them. He's done a great job He's done an absolutely fantastic job. 2mm steel. And we're going to sandwich those either side of the chassis. Oh, I forget how heavy this transformer is. But I'll just pop that on there and show you the fitment. Absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. The only thing I do need to do is slightly enlarge the holes ever so slightly, just because the transformer bolts are ever so slightly bent, just to give us enough clearance to fit in those. So what I'm going to do before I install the transformer in the chassis is I'm going to install these in and bolt them into place, and they will help squash and rebend the original chassis back into a straight uniform position. So I'll leave that for a bit, then I can install the transformer finally. But yeah, I'm super happy with those. They look great. Really, really pleased with those, and they weren't too expensive. And the good thing, actually, he was saying to me, because I went to pick them up this morning, was that now he's got the computer file saved, he can run as many of these off as I needed. So if anyone wants some, let me know. They won't be too expensive. I think I've got to order minimum of 10 at a time, so 5 sets we'll call it, because you want to have 2 of them. But if anyone's interested, get in touch, and yeah, we'll get a set done, and you can have them at pretty much whatever they cost me plus shipping, and they won't be expensive. But yeah, so a good way to strengthen the chassis, I think. And finally, big thanks to Graham on this one. He's been incredibly kind. He contacted me, and I think I've already mentioned this on a video. He sent me an email and said, I've actually got a spare head cabinet for a Baseman 135. It was from a Baseman 135 that he then had modded, that I could have free of charge. All I had to do was pay for shipping, which I've done, and it turned up. Here it is. And it's in really, really nice condition. Appropriately aged, all worn for the year, but overall it's very, very nice. It looks great. We confirmed it does have the 3 sets of corners: bottom front, bottom rear, top rear, like that. The baffle's in good shape. The rear panel, which I'll get out for you, is in good shape. The Tolex is in nice condition. So I've got a decision to make. Let's pop it out this way so you can see it. The original head cab, that's one that's being recovered, is almost done and will be back with me shortly. So when that arrives back, I need to make a decision about which one I use for this project. Do I use the original cab that's been recovered, or do I use this original fender cab with its original Tolex? And then I need to decide whichever one I don't use, what do I do with that one? Now, I think what I'd like to do is build another one. I think I should build another one, but modify it. So I'll keep the restored one as stock, and then I will build a highly modified hot rodded version as well. And then I've got 2, one that's original, one that's modified. I think that'd be a really cool idea. So that's what we're going to do. But let me show you this cab, because I'm a little confused about something, and maybe some of you can help me. So as you remember, the original head cab was missing the fender badge, which I've managed to find. I managed to find the correct one. So it's no script, and it's got Made in USA written on with, so it's gold with the, chrome with the black background. So that's the correct badge for the amp. Now, the cabinet, that Graham has kindly supplied to me, doesn't have a badge either. You can see it's missing the badge, right? Now, looking online, just looking at the placement of the badge, it's at quite an angle, and you could say that the end of the F there is on the 1, 2, 3, the 3rd column, roughly underneath input number 1 there. Okay, so that's the position of it. Remember, 1, 2, 3, right? Well, if we look at this cabinet that Graham supplied to me, try and do this so you can see it. You can see where, well, I can see where the original screw holes were for the badge that was removed. There and there. If I offer this badge up to those holes, the angle appears to be right. Come on, where is it? There. And there. But the badge, look, is very far over. It's almost at the edge. The edge of the F is on the first column. It should be there. Right? So which is right? All the ones I look online are kind of there. But this one, the original screw holes are there. Any idea? What should we do? Now, I've only got one badge. So, the badge is going to go on whichever cabinet has the original fender amp in. I think that's the best and fair way to do it. And then whichever one I use for my own version, we won't put a badge on. Because I'm not going to put a fender badge on a non-fender product. Cool. So, let me know down below, what do you think I should do? Which cat head cabinet should I use? Should I use this original one that Graham kindly donated to me? With its original Tolex, it's in very nice condition. Or do I use the original cabinet for the chassis, but that has been recovered? Let me know down below. Give me your comments, your thoughts, any questions you've got, all that kind of stuff. And we can make a decision together. I'll read your comments and work out what the consensus is. If you want to include arguments for and against, please do. I'd love to read them. And we'll just take it from there. So, yeah. Anyway, let's crack on. Progress has been made. At least some progress, anyway. So, as we saw in the last video, I'd already wired in the preamp for the sockets. So, the preamp sockets, that's right. Yep. Now that the transformer is properly mounted, I've managed to start making all the connections that I want to. So, my output sockets, the resistors are in, screen, grid and cathode. All the inter-socket connections done, and that's now hooked up. Output transformer is wired in, both the anode and the screens, because it's ultra linear. And I've started to make progress on the rest of the transformer wires. So we've got just our primaries here, which we're going to do last. Got my heaters there, which is going to go up to the socket there. Got my high voltage in, got my center tap here, got my bias supply here, and my 3 grounds up here from the rectifier board, the bias, the second half of the bias winding, and the ground that used to be here. Now we're running up to the same point. So that's coming on great. Next for this will be just continuing along down the line. Although, what I might do is start on the pots or the interpot wirings, any components that need to go on there, because I am slightly changing the grounding scheme and grounding everything over here. So that's what we're going to do with those. So we need to get all that done. But it is coming on quite nicely. New pots are in, by the way, the spline pots. So they're all in now. So that's that issue sorted. Bias pot has arrived, of course. So I need to figure out what the tail resistor is going to be. So we're going to have the wire from... It's a weird bias arrangement, this amp, because the bias filter caps are on the filter board itself. So your bias supply here, it then runs from this point down through this eyelet up to my filter caps. Then it comes back out to the pot, and then the wiper of the pot will have a flying lead all the way over to this eyelet here. So it's a bit of a convoluted method, and do you know what, in hindsight, if I was building this from scratch and not doing a restoration, I would just put it all on this board here, and it'd just be easier, wouldn't it? Just have a separate bias and rectifier board with those caps on there. But here we are, this is what we're doing. shouldn't be. It will be fine. But yeah, that's coming on great, I think. Really happy with that. I need to think about the other next steps as well, which will be output wiring. I know I said I was going to have the single 4 and the single 8 ohm socket, but I can't remember who it was, but somebody made a comment about how useful the line out socket was. So I might just return this to the standard setup, the switching setup, and just run it like that. And if I want to change it in the future, I can. Not a problem. So that's what we're going to do with that. And what was the other thing? Oh yeah, we're going to keep the hum balance control, but that's all going in last when I do the heaters. But yeah, there you go, progress. Where have we got to on this then? Well, quite a bit of progress. So all of the pots are now, all the interpot wires are done, apart from the master, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, on both channels. So all these pots are now done. So I'm going to connect those up to the board with their associated wires shortly. That's going to be the next job. But what I've done, as you can see, is quite a bit of progress. Got the phase inverter done. Got the rest of the rectifier board bias supply done. All of the wires going to the filter board are now done. Coming out of there. They're all done and sorted. What I've done with the bias pot, rather than having, I said I was going to have a flying lead over, I've actually run it underneath the filter board on the underside of the chassis, back out through this hole and over to here. It kind of fits with the build style of the amplifier. I think it's nicer. Yes, but that's really, I'm not far off. Really not far off. So once I've done the tone stack wires, I need to do everything on the rear panel here apart from the heaters and the hum control, because that's going to be done last. Got my mains wiring to do, and the master volume. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So that goes from this point here, this is the send, as we'll call it, from this point all the way up to the master volume, and then you've got return that comes back to the phase inverter input there. Which is going to be shielded wire as well. It's just deciding where I ground it. Do I want to ground it to the rest of the preamp or further downstream? Not sure yet, but that's what it's going to be. It's going to be easy, really. I can always change things at a later date, so I haven't got to worry about things, but this is really making progress. I've obviously got my input jacks to do on both channels as well. But look, it's really looking like a amplifier now. I was going to say guitar amp, but I'm using it as bass amp. So yeah, good news, coming on strong. So mains wiring will be, got my IC socket, on-off switch. Did I tell you I was going to use the 260 volt tap, this one here, rather than 240, just to lower all the voltages internally? Yes, I did tell you that, you know that. So that's what we're going to do with that. And yeah, I genuinely think this will be fired up. So the plan was to launch this video, as in to stop now, put this video out, but I think as I'm so close, I may as well do it as a finishing. I may as well finish the build, get this thing fired up, and add that to this video. There you go, that's what I'm trying to say. And then any further parts will be, tweaking, assembling into cabinet, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but this is coming on. I'm really happy with this. It's obviously it's looking like a silver panel lamp in terms of the lead dress and the wiring, but it's a neater version of that, but it's still got its character. So it's a nice nod to its originality whilst doing some really cool minor improvements just to try and improve this thing. Yeah, I'm loving this. Big fan. Right, you've just seen me do the tone stack wiring on both channels, the heater wires. What I've done is I've just what am I trying to say? I know what I'm trying to say. I want to be able to fire it up. Today's a Saturday, by the way. I want to fire it up at the end of the day. Not going to be finished, but so what I've done is I've done some temporary stuff. So I've just hooked up the 8 ohm socket there with the 4 ohm. That's the negative feedback, so that's there. I've done my heaters. Because I've got an IEC socket, I don't need an on-off switch because that is my disconnect device. I will do an on-off switch when it's finally done, but for testing, I've just hooked up the live and the neutral on the primary side, which will be absolutely fine. I need to do a safety earth, so I'm going to put a grounding point there and run that in. All I've got to do now is my inputs on both channels, my return from the volume controls to V1 and V2 side Bs, and my master volume control, and then and final grounding. Then I should be able to fire this up on the bench. So that's what I'm aiming for, because I at least want to be able to do some basic voltage checks. You know, do the classic stuff. Check that there's voltage where there should be. Check that there's not voltage where there shouldn't be. Check that signal flow is basically where it should be, and everything's working as it's intended, and then, you know, I can return and go back and do final assembly and stuff. But I want to get this to a point where I can fire it up on the bench and do some very basic preliminary testing, just to make sure that I haven't made a fundamental error somewhere and that I need to go back and fix it. Right, okay. On the bench, as I said earlier, this is not completed, this is not done, but I've got it to a state where I can do an initial fire up and just do some basic checks. That's all I've done here. So anything you see that doesn't look right or isn't finished, that's why, because this build isn't finished yet. I just want to do some basic checks and make sure everything is as it should be. No standby switch, so I've just jumped the 2 points there. I've got my shielded wires in for the master volume and the 2 channels. They're all in. But before I even apply power to this, obviously the chassis is used as a ground on this. There are no floating grounds. And so what I like to do on a first fire up or first check over is connect the common lead of my meter to the pin on here on the socket itself. And then I can go around with my positive lead and check on the continuity setting that everything that should be connected to ground is. So, for example, is the chassis grounded? Yes, it is. Okay, that's an easy one. What about the common lead of the output transformer? Yes, it is. Okay, see what we're doing here. Hum balance control, bias pot, preamp grounds. Okay, you see what I did there? I've just gone around and I quickly checked that all the important things that should be grounded are. I'm going to just do the cathodes as well. Yeah, you happy with that? I'm happy with that. So I've got a fuse in. I haven't decided what size fuse we'll run with eventually. So I've got a 3 amp fuse in there, but I am just going to fire this up in restriction mode and then take some measurements throughout the amplifier. I'm going to measure on the plates of the output valves for the time being. I'll fire this up with no valves installed. Behave. Tell you what, we'll do this end one here, because that's the one we did on the initial inspection. Okay. Let's position you where you can see the light bulb. Can you see the meter there? You can. All my controls at 0. No valves installed. Got a fuse in the circuit. What do I expect to see when I turn on the power to the amplifier? And I've got the bulb in circuit. It's a 100-watt bulb. I expect to see an initial inrush of current, which will be indicated by the bulb itself glowing slightly bright. So you should see the filament light up, and then it'll immediately die down. The high voltage will come up quite quickly because it's not a valve rectifier, it's solid state diodes. Yep. And we should get a high voltage reading on the meter. I would have thought somewhere in the 450 range as it's unloaded, maybe even slightly higher. And then if everything is okay, because we should get the dual light lighting up as well. But if everything okay, I expect to see what, 10-15 watts of consumption out the wall. I'll be able to read here. And then it should just settle down and do nothing. And at that point, I'm looking for anything untowards. I'm listening for sounds that shouldn't be there. I'm looking for smoke and smells and all that sort of stuff. I will connect up a dummy load, but I don't need one at the moment. And obviously once I energise this, I'm only going to be touching stuff with a chopstick. So, shall we go? Wish me luck. So we've got an initial flash on the bulb and it's dimmed down. And we've come up to 452 volts on the plates. We're getting 16 watts of consumption out the wall. .7, it's settled down and it's stabilised at 455 volts. What we're going to do is do some basic voltage checks throughout the amplifier, make sure we've got voltage where we expect to see it. So we've checked those plates on the brown side. Let's check the blues. 456. Let's check the screens. 456 on that side. 456 on that side. Let's check we've got negative voltage on the grids. Negative 38.6 on that side. Negative 38.6 on that side. And that would be a good time, a good point to get a screwdriver and turn the bias control and set it to its maximum negative voltage for its first fire up. If I can find a screwdriver. Yes, I can. Can you see? Negative 38. Now I turn the bias pot. Yep. Get the other screwdriver. That one turned better? Not really. It's even worse. What about this one? Yeah, okay, right. Negative 42.5 goes all the way fully clockwise to negative 53. We go all the way the other way to negative 38.8. So we've got an 11 0.2 volt range. No, more than that. 15 volt range, isn't it? 14, 15 volt range. So we'll set it to maximum negative. Negative 53 on that side. Negative 53 on that side. Great. Okay, preamps. No, let's check. Let's start with the phase inverter. Voltage that side. Voltage that side. On the cathode. Not a valve installed yet, so that's fine. Preamps. Plates. Voltage there. Voltage there. Voltage there. Voltage there. Okay. Interesting. Really happy with that. I'm happy to stick some valves in. Let's do that. So we'll start with the preamp valve, shall we? We're going to use the ones that it came with. So we've got the two Harmer 7025s for V1 and V2, and we've got the ECC81 for the phase inverter. I'm getting quite a warm smell from this. Should be okay. So phase inverter. And what we'll do is, yeah. I'm being defeated by a valve socket. Why are you so stiff? Oh, I see. One moment. Sorry about that. Preamp valves are now in. That's a high voltage. It's dropped slightly now. Now we're getting some draw on the circuit. Let's get our output valves. Remember, we've got a nice quad of the new red bases. Still in restriction mode. Okay. Right, that's all valves in. Current consumption has now come up at the wall to 37 watts, which is roughly where they are in restriction mode with all the valves in. B plus has dropped to, what's it dropped to? 313. Just let that stabilise for a minute. All of my heaters are on. Yep. And the valves are conducting ever so slightly. Around 8 milliamps running through each. I mean, I've turned them off pretty much with the bias control all the way down, but they are conducting slightly, which is a good sign. Okay, let's go through now. I've got all the valves in. Let's check voltages where I expect to see them. Yep. 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 Lovely. This is all good news. Okay. So at this point, just move you around again. Let's give you that view. Hopefully you can see a bit more what's going on. I'll get that light out of the way. If I come around this way, does it give you a better view? I think it does. Okay. I'm happy. I'm happy to give this amp full power and then see roughly what our voltages are, where we can bias it up to, and then we can, if it passes that test, measure its output, see what we actually can get. Okay. So B plus has come up to 510 volts, but bear in mind the output valves really aren't switched on. Current consumption is 113 watts. It's stabilised. I can hear the rectifier switching noise. Maybe this will pick it up. Maybe not. Okay. But she's stable. Bias is now negative 58.6 volts on the grids. This valve is conducting at 24.5 millivolts. Okay. Let's connect up the scope. Let's go into this channel. Treble and bass on 0, mid on full, master on full. Oh, we have output. We have big output. I'm going to have to put the probe in 10 times mode. Hold on. Let me put a knob on that master control. Okay, so we're getting there. That's maximum. Can you see on the scope? Master volume's on full. 31.2, so we'll call it 31 volts into 8 ohms. 120 watts clean. That's not bad, is it? That's not bad at all. Should we do a quick bias measurement to find out where we are? Let's do a quick bias measurement. Down you go. So plate voltage is at 510. You see? 510? 511? We'll call it 511. So 511 times our cathode current. 25.3. Times 0.0253. 12.9 watts. And of course they're 6L6s, so divided by 30. Coming in at 43%. What do you make of that? What do you make of that? What do we need for 135 watts clean? We need to hit 32, 33 volts RMS output. So let's bring that back up to where it's clean. There. Oh, come on. That's really finicky. Hold on. There. We'll call that there. Let's just turn up the bias. Okay. Starting to square off. So I can get 32 volts out of it. 32 volts is, into 8 ohms, 128 watts. Close enough. Let's double check those bias measurements. We were at 43% before. Plate voltage now dropped to 506. 506 times 40.8 milliamps. So times 0.0408, 20.64 watts divided by 30, running at 68%. Ho! Ho, ho, ho! What's that? Bang on the numbers. Bang on the numbers. It's drawing at idle 146 watts out of the wall, which is, it's 246 volts today, 0.8 amps. Don't know about you, I'm getting 130 watts out my amp. Right, should we try the other channel? The bass channel, mid on full. Get another knob. Up it comes, up it comes, up it comes. Squaring off, back it down. .32 volts, 128 watts. That's close enough for me. I'm really happy with that. That's great. Look at that. Treble control works. Bass control works. Mid control works. Master volume working nice and smoothly. The bass switch, bit of a bump down in power there. I wonder what's going on with that. We'll have to inspect that. Let's check the bright switch on the normal channel. Treble. Oh, you see that? We're getting a drop down there. So something going on with the treble. Well, sorry, with the tone stack on this channel. If the treble control acts like master volume as it's doing there, you've got an issue. And I suspect because I've reused the 40, was it a 47? Yeah, the 47 nanocarat original cap that's across there. I reckon that's slightly leaky. So we'll swap that out, see if we can fix that issue. But yeah, how cool is that? We have a working amplifier. We have a working amplifier that's biasing up correctly, is putting out loads of power into 8 ohms. Big fan of that. No smoke, no fire. Shall I get the bass? Right, I've got the bass. I haven't mic'd up the cab, and it is a guitar cab, so don't expect anything. We're just checking that it works. I'm into the bass channel. I've got the treble, treble, middle, and bass roughly all at noon. Volume on 4. No. Yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah, great. If I get far enough away from it, it's really silent. It's really silent. Little bit of operational noise. Obviously, the chassis is open on the bench and it's not finished at all. I'm really happy with that. Tone control all the way off. Tone control all the way up. Oh, that's a lot of top end. Yeah, that's great. Well, it's alive. It's working. Yeah. Really happy. Really happy indeed. Wow. Okay, so what's next? Well, I need to go back, sort some of those issues out, finish the build properly. There's a couple of things I want to go back and redo, improve, but it's working and it's putting out loads of power. Someone told me that you're lucky to get 100 watts out of these, even though they're rated 135. Well, I'm getting 130 watts. And the valves are bias cool. They're running at 500 volts, which is fine. Quite happy with that. I did want that to be slightly lower. But yeah, overall, I'm really happy with that. I'm so happy. It's come out great. It's not even finished yet. So yeah, anyway. We'll call that complete now for today's video, for this part of it. Next up will be more... We'll be finishing it off properly. Cabinets should be with me. Final bits and pieces. etc., etc., etc. But she's alive and she sounds great.